Do you have a retirement plan? I'm Kevin Tharp, elder law and estate planning attorney.
And I'm Gary Anderson, financial advisor, Anderson Advisors.
Gary, I think it sounds like an obvious question given what we've been talking about on today's show as well as on last week's show when we talk about having a successful retirement plan. But a lot of times people think it for granted. They think, oh, yeah, I got a retirement plan because I got an account here at work, or I've got an IRA over here and my guy's handling it. Or, I'll call them every once in a while and they'll tell me, yeah, you're doing good, Mr. Kevin. You're doing really good. And then I'll call 6 months later or every quarter and I'll get somebody else and they'll tell me, oh, you're doing really good. That DIY, do it yourself retirement account or retirement planning doesn't always work out the best because whatever information you give out, that's what they're giving back. And so I think it's a good step of why is it important then that they have that conversation with a financial advisor?
Well, if nothing else, Kevin, you find out whether or not you're on the right road. There's nothing better than having a retirement plan that's a roadmap, actually something that you can look at every now and then. It's very difficult for me, like it is everyone else, I'm sure, just to have this in the back of your mind all the time. You got a lot of things going on. Life is busy. You have family, you have functions, you have jobs still, you got things that you're doing there. It's hard to keep up with every single thing. Now, some people enjoy managing their own retirement plans. Some people, quite frankly, are really good at it. But sometimes they come to me and they want to know just how good they are at it. This is something we can help them do. And then you know whether you're on the right track or not. Typically, it's nice to have an advisor help you with this just because it's a load off your mind, if nothing else. I have a client had a client who died recently over the past year. He's probably one of the best managers of investments I've ever seen. That wasn't his job. He had been CEO of a couple of companies over the years and had just done a fabulous job with that. And he was good at it, but and he told me this several times, Gary, I spend 38 hours a week. Now, this man was in his 80s. Spend 38 hours a week on this. And he said, my wife, on the other hand, could care less. So the first time I ever saw him, he said, I think I'm slipping. I think I'm not as interested in these investments anymore. So I need somebody to help me. I need somebody to start to take over this because his wife was a good bit younger than he was, for one thing, and she was in better health than he was, and he was very concerned, just like we all are. This is what we think about as our spouses all the time. What's going to happen to my spouse if something happens to me, either financially, physically, socially, whatever it is, it's important. So we want to plan for that. So this is what he did. Over a period of time, we started helping him more and more with those investments. When he passed away, things were in good shape then for his wife, who could care less. Now, sometimes it's the wife who's really good at this and the husband who's not so good at it. One spouse or the other. Typically, I don't see both spouses being as interested as the other spouse, each other, when they are working with investments or retirement plans. One is, one isn't. That's kind of what makes a relationship the way it is. So by coming in and talking to us about it, just having the conversation, sometimes we want to measure things like risk levels. Risk becomes important. Back in March of 2020, which is not too long ago, actually, we saw a tremendous market. It wasn't really a correction. It was just a flat, almost shutdown of business in this country, and the markets reacted accordingly. So this threw everybody into the reality that we had kind of forgotten about over the years, that investments don't always go up. Matter of fact, these dropped overnight. People were down 33% before they even knew what happened. And that was the markets in general, and a lot of in retirement plans, a lot of 401ks, IRAs, investment accounts went down by that much. Well, if you were 65, 70, 75 years old when that happened and you were counting on this money to be able to take care of you at some point in time in your life to create more income for you, then that was a shock. And that was a nice wake-up call. Fortunately, we had the convenience of these accounts and these investments coming back. The value came back. It's back now, and even more so, or it should be, than where it was when all this hit. So if you haven't had someone look at your overall investments, it's a good time to do it. It's a good time to just sit down, have the conversation. A lot of times, in today's world, because of COVID that's still out there, we do things like Zoom meetings and phone calls for initial consultations if people don't feel comfortable in coming in. But no matter what, get started with the conversation.
We're talking about, do you have a retirement plan? Written retirement plan on Truth and Planning. I'm Kevin Tharp, elder law and estate planning attorney.
And I'm Gary Anderson, financial advisor, Anderson Advisors.
And so, Gary, it is very important that we do have put all of these things together as a part of our plan. And I think the best start, as you said, is to have that conversation with an experienced advisor, somebody who deals with retirement planning for many, many clients over the years, like you do.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, this is something that you need to be able to do. A lot of times people don't realize that a retirement plan, an income plan, the investments that you have don't have to be just market investments. You can have investments all over the place. Typically, that's what we see with people. It's in all these places. All those particular functions, all those particular sources of money have different functions, and so they're made to address certain things. Well, sometimes you never really got that far with the overall plan. These things now need to come together in a plan that will address whatever the need is down the line somewhere, or whatever your goals are down the line somewhere. Income is always imperative. Sometimes people have enough income and pensions, Social Security, they don't need to touch anything right now. But the investments they have allow them to create more income and take more income later when things happen. When a spouse dies, that's always a thing that we don't really want to think about. None of us do. But it's the most important thing and the biggest thing that impacts people's retirement. Because I'll tell you this, Kevin, it takes just as much for one person to live as it does two. And so the investments that you have become more and more important. Those investments have to replace income that's lost. And it's easy to forget about. The best thing to do is create a plan, which we like to do, this roadmap. Then you can forget about it because you've set things in motion then for whatever happens. One spouse dies, the other spouse dies. There's long-term care that you have to pay for. Like I always say, the 800-pound gorilla. Those things now come together and they address all of these things as they happen throughout your retirement years. Then you can enjoy what you do. Yep, here I am. This is where I am on the road right now. This is my map through retirement. And yep, we can have checkpoints to make sure, yes, we're here now. We need to be able to do these things and just follow that course.
Gary, I like what you said earlier about investments are not just necessarily what you have in stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot of people that I know in my family and many of my clients that have said, well, I don't have any money to invest, and not really realize that a bank account is an investment.
That's exactly
and even
right.
how important it is, for example, to have money in a bank account that maybe you have a 3-6 month safety net there, because when you're retired and you're on set or fixed income and something breaks and your air conditioning breaks down in the middle of August, you're not going to be able to go out and get more income unless you want to go out and get a job delivering pizzas. Then you're going to have to rely on an investment that you can get to fairly quickly, and that's where having a bank account become helpful.
Right. There's always a place for the money, and the bank account is the place you start. Just because you have to have what we call transactional money, paying the bills. That's money in, money out. That's your income coming in. All the things that you have to pay for are going out. And so you do have to have a good source there. And we like to make sure that that's included in part of the plan too. Don't have too much invested in places that aren't quite as liquid. Make sure that you have money that's invested in places that are liquid as well.
Gary, what's the first step that our listeners can take?
Kevin, they can call us, Anderson Advisors, 888-371-2847, 888-371-2847. Tell them you're a radio listener, and we'd be glad to have you come in.
You've been listening to Truth and Planning on North Georgia's News Talk AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.